Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. In a timey-wimey way, my guest, Rhonda, will be my last recording in 2024. So, Rhonda, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I am so happy you're here at the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm happy to
Yeah.
be here.
Yeah, Rhonda, tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. I've been working since I was 15 and a half. I grew up in Southern California, went to Cal State Fullerton, majored in American Studies, which is a cultural look at our history. And then I moved to Minneapolis, St. Paul in the late 90s. And I've worked in corporate America with executives, publicly traded companies, managed portfolio of internal projects worth 40 million, returned to college while I was working full time, and I got my master's in executive leadership. And I also got my doctorate just this year, actually, in January. I walked in graduation and finished my doctorate finally. And none of it is so I can say, oh, I've got my doctorate degree, isn't this great? I literally enjoy learning and hearing other perspectives and points of view. And it's just been a great life's experience. So after finishing my dissertation, I thought, wow, I'm so done with writing. That lasted about 6 months, and then I really missed it. I missed it so much, and I thought, what can I do that is going to be fun? Because I don't want to do more academia. Although I did look at employee engagement, executive engagement, it was more about the people. It's still, I didn't want to do academic. So I thought, of course, I'm going to write a book about being a fan of Springsteen, and I want to include other people's stories. That's how I worked my way through corporate America, got the degrees, and now I'm at a point where transformation, working on the next step. And ironically, here we are on the last day of the last series of your podcast of 24. So I love it.
That is cool. Yeah, so we're going to get into because you're asking for some help from the Springsteen community, though it won't cost them any money. In fact, it's going to save them money if they're shopping for collectibles. But before we get to that, I always like to start at the beginning. So you mentioned growing up in Southern California, where it never rains, according to 70s pop songs. Tell you where I'm coming from. The but talk about growing up. What kind of music was your household listening to? What did you grow up listening to?
My parents got married very young. They were 16. So I had not only my parents, but I had my grandparents and my aunt and my
Okay,
uncle. And I grew up listening to everything, literally. My one of my grandpa's favorite songs was Yesterday by the Beatles. And they loved
sure.
the big bands and Lawrence Welk show on Saturdays. My grandma was a huge fan of Engelbert Humperdinck and a fan. And so again, parents being really young, the day to day, night, afternoon, evening, after school, it was Janis Joplin, the Stones, Creedence, Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, a lot of soul music, Rod Stewart, Carole King, Cat Stevens, Allman Brothers, the band. Um, I was
Wow.
I was 5 years old when I got my first record album. My uncle gave it to me, and it was the Four Tops, Reach Out, with the song Bernadette on it. And oh, I played that record on my little portable and just really enjoyed it. And then I have to be honest, though, in all transparency, I was absolutely a Donny Osmond Brothers fan until high school. And my first concert was at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. My grandma took me and my sister and cousins to see the Osmond Brothers at Caesar's Palace. And it was amazing. So that was my childhood of growing up listening to music.
So that is an incredible diverse portfolio, though I do need to share with you, Rhonda, because we're bonding now. This past summer, Donny Osmond was touring with his Vegas show. And I asked my wife, did you want to go? And she said, no, I have no interest. She goes, but you go and you'll get a better seat if you don't have to pay for two. So I did. I bought a pretty decent seat. I couldn't get really close up. And I laughed. I think and I don't mean this insulting. I hope everyone takes it the right thing. I think I was the only single male straight that was there, right? Like
Right,
every other male was with their wife, you could tell had dragged them,
right,
and I had a blast. I told my wife she missed it because it wasn't a concert, it was his Vegas show. And I said it was incredibly entertaining. He was incredibly charming, and it was the little 12-year-old guy who thought David Cassidy and Donny Osmond were the two coolest people in the world,
right.
right? The Partridge
Yeah,
Family and Donny Osmond got to travel the world singing with his brothers. How
right.
cool is that?
It was
So
it was so cool until high school.
yeah, oh yeah.
It's
And
like, oh,
yeah, then it couldn't be. Yeah. Can you remember when you first discovered Bruce and what
sure.
about his music spoke to you?
Definitely. Again, that transformation to high school, I was listening, because of I think the diversity in my childhood, I listened to everything and
Sure.
everything. I really got into Foghat and Van Halen and Peter Frampton and
Yeah.
Foreigner, Heart. Then, of course, Hungry Heart was on the radio nonstop. And The River was the first Springsteen album that I actually bought on my own. And I loved it. I loved it. And I continued with my diversification. I listened to UFO, Supertramp. And then in the early mid 80s it was B-52s, Billy Idol, Culture Club, a lot of music from UK in general. And
Yeah.
then I found Bruce again. How I found Bruce was I heard Born in the USA on the radio, like just about everybody. And I bought that album right away. And then I played it nonstop. And then as I'm playing it, then all these top 10 hits, excuse me, these top 10 hits are on the radio, being rotated through the radio and Dancing in the Dark. At that point in time, really spoke to me in terms of what a lot of people say. I could relate to the lyrics, wanting to change my hair, my clothes, my face. I'm bored with myself. Just and Bound Train. My goodness, what a heartbreaking song. And it was just, then I started going back into his other collection and really, gosh, really enjoyed it. And then I don't want to get ahead of you. Ask.
No, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish, please.
So, then I saw him for the first time at the very end of the Born in the USA tour
Okay.
in September of 1985 at the LA Memorial Coliseum, the final shows. And I went with a friend, and it's a outdoor stadium where 80,000 seats exist, or excuse me,
Right.
80,000 capacity. I'm in a seat opposite end of the stage, right? So Bruce looks about this big.
Yeah. Yes.
But I was so emotionally touched. I could not believe what was happening because for me, I was going to a concert. I'd been to a lot of concerts by then. I had seen
Yeah.
Foreigner. I had seen so many shows. And it's 1985. I'm going to a concert. And oh my gosh, the stories that he told, in particular, the story he told leading up to the river about
Mhm.
his father and him going at it all the time. And just saying, I can't wait till the military gets you. They're going to make a man out of you.
Yeah.
And I had never heard in my life, I had never heard a man emote like that and be so transparent and so open. And I literally had tears in my eyes. And I thought,
Yeah.
what is happening here? Because here I am, a young person going to the show, and oh, I was so touched. I went back the next night by myself. I did not care.
Yeah.
I was going, and I just started talking to other people. And I found people were so open and nice, and I thought, wow, this is really different.
Hmm. Can you articulate why? Is it because he shared so much of himself?
It really was. There were so many
Yeah.
stories. so many stories, and particularly what stands out and what I remember is, first of all, the closeness of the band and him hugging Clarence
Yeah,
and running all over the place on the stage and just seemingly to really love what he is doing. And the show went on into the third
yeah,
hour. And it was, I never, excuse me, I never looked at my watch. I was soaking it all in. But when he spoke about war, before he sang the song War, just talking and again about you young people are going to need to have a lot of information and know a lot about a lot of things, because blind faith in your leaders or in anyone
yeah.
could get you killed. And I had never heard any performer speak. I had been to a lot of concerts before this, and my goodness, he was so sincere and so passionate. And also hearing Trapped. Oh my gosh, Trapped. I heard it for the first time ever. It was the way the band played it and how still they got, how much louder they got. And he sang with such conviction. And it really, I thought, wow, this guy feels trapped, not physically, but
Yeah.
like emotionally. And it really, I feel like part of me grew up during those performances.
I always like to preface this, Rhonda, with the amount of times you've seen Bruce perform live is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are. There are people that, because of where they grew up, have seen him hundreds of times. There's others that, because of their age or economic situation or where they're located, they may never have seen him. But for the record, do you count how many times you've seen him? And if so, how many?
I don't count anymore. I can tell you 25-ish,
Okay.
maybe 30, but I don't anymore.
Okay.
And I think what, excuse me again, what happened for me is living in LA or Orange County, and then also living in Minneapolis, St. Paul. I've seen multiple shows of the same tour. I
Yeah.
mean, if he's playing 3 nights in St. Paul, I'm going 3 nights.
Right.
And that I want the experience. I want to be amongst other
Yeah.
people, and I want to just feel the
Yeah.
community.
Hmm.
Yes.
Are there shows that have out to you? And obviously they're all great, like, but is there some that maybe there's specific show stories or something you want to share?
Sure. There's several that have stood out, but I think one that had a tremendous amount of impact on me was the 2000, it was actually 1999, the reunion tour. I even watched the DVD of the New York City show.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say I probably watch it once a week or every 10 days. I mean,
That
I,
nothing to be embarrassed about.
but I just, again, the passion and some of the
Yeah.
performances, like Bruce doing The Promise on the piano.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember him just sweating profusely, jumping up on the piano with Roy sitting there and thinking nothing of it, wringing out his shirt that is just dripping wet of sweat,
Yeah.
and saying, and excuse me for saying this, but he said, "Get up off your asses,"
Yeah.
to the audience. And it's, come on, Minnesota, stop being so reserved. Uh, but
Yes.
there, but that those performances, Jungle Land, gosh, Racing in the Street, I've just smitten. Of course, Thunder Road and Born to Run, but songs that I had not heard before. I just absolutely loved it. The Devils and Dust tour, solo, wow, wow. I don't want to say I wasn't a huge fan of the album, because I always go back as I've aged. I go back to these albums, and
Yeah.
they're amazing. But at the time, it didn't really resonate with me. But oh my gosh, seeing him live and perform these songs again, the depth of which he expresses himself, it's not phony. I know he talks about magic on the Broadway tour, and I think there's a lot of people that actually took that seriously, which is, I don't know, if I'm that a bit troubling, but
Yeah.
I believe wholeheartedly in the sincerity of the stories, whether they're fiction or whether he lived them or he observed them or he knows of them. It isn't BS. At least that's my biased take on it.
So I have a wonderful friend named Sarah Hickman, and she has had a fun career musically, and she always jokes with me that she never lets the truth get in the way of a good story. And when she's performing on stage, she may take this story that has mostly true and then will and embellish it is the wrong words, but she will change it a little bit where it it gets to make a performance. And I think um, when he did Storytellers for The Devils and Dust, right? And he
Mhm.
talked about it. Was I consciously thinking of all this? But I was feeling everything of it, right? And I think there is an emotional truth to it that I remember Penn Jillette talking about when Brian Williams got there was a controversy about him not necessarily being in a helicopter or something, and Penn Jillette said, "If I was within 1 mile of a helicopter being shot at, I would tell." And so there wasn't necessarily this where I'm supposed to lie. Yeah, I absolutely get you. I did say that Devils and Dust was the second show I saw live. And it was the first show because when I went and saw The Rising, I was what I call a casual fan, right? I had bought all the albums like everyone else, like exactly you. First discovered The River, Born in the USA, everyone had Love, Tunnel Love, the box set, but then drifted away. Other stuff happened. We had a son in 89. We just other things are going on. And so when I went a chance to see him at the Rise again, I on my bucket list, got to see Bruce live, got to see Bruce live. And my wife had said afterwards, "Were you happy?" And I said, well, if he had walked out, done Born to Run, and left, I would have been happy, right? To hear Born to Run live. But I didn't know a lot of those songs that he did because I
Mm.
wasn't as a big fan. And Devils and Dust, I knew that CD backwards and forwards. I was ready, right? And so hearing all those songs live, so it always has a special place in my heart because it's the first album that really I got to see live and everything. You're talking about how you thought you might be tired of writing after your doctorate, but you're doing much, but you are working on a book. So tell me a little bit about the origins of why you decided to take your fandom and then do something with creatively with it.
Sure. Excuse me. Like a lot of life's experiences, they have a way of working themselves out. Not to be elusive, I really love that Bruce has said, I'm in a long conversation with my audience, and it'll be a lifelong journey for both of us. And I thought that is so cool. And he has bared his soul on stage over the years, over the decades to us. And I thought, wow, I wonder in more depth what fans have to say. And
Hmm.
I'm genuinely curious. Genuinely curious. I thought, all right, I'm going to first start writing my own story out. And then I'm going to see what questions do I want to ask of people. And so I created this survey, and it's not like SurveyMonkey. It's actually a really good tool where
Hmm.
people can they can type in their responses or they can record them, which is so convenient.
Yes.
And I've been fortunate to have Sean Poole, Letters to You, share the survey link, and I've had, with his help and others, I've had about 125 solid responses where I can look at the demographic in terms of how long have you been a fan, what was some of your first experiences, etc. But how has Springsteen impacted your life? And questions that go just a little bit deeper. And of course, there's some folks that don't want to answer, and that's great.
Ah,
That is, there's others that have really expressed a great deal. And then what I've done is I've met with them over Zoom and I've expanded and explored their relationships with their family, their friends, and really understood the depth of what Bruce has meant in their lives. And I just got goosebumps. It is so special. And I feel so just, I feel so fortunate to be able to do this. The quality of the content to me is it's all about the fans and it's going to be great no matter how it ends up on paper. But yeah, I'm very excited and passionate about it. I love that people from all over the world are taking the survey. And I just encourage people to take the survey. And people do not have to speak in English. They can speak in their native language and be super comfortable. Some people have written that I don't speak good English. Neither do I.
yeah, I will tell you what I've told a couple of people, and because I've had the same thing. I've had someone from where English is not their native language, and they'll say that they're just uncomfortable. And so, in a couple of times, what I've done is I've actually sent them the questions I will ask, right? And
Sure.
then I'll say, okay, all you need to do is record this, your answer in English. Just right. Take your time, redo it, then send it to me, and then I'll edit in me asking the questions. So that way you're comfortable. The other question is I said, this is Springsteen fans, my podcast fans are very kind because they put up with me stumbling, missing. I there will be no judgment. So I think that is a beautiful thing. So let's first, and I'm going to ask a few more questions about the survey, but where do they go to fill out the survey?
Excuse me, Letters to You has a banner up
Okay.
right now, and also an online collectible store that I started, springsteenfan.com. If you go to that site, you can click on the menu at the top and click on Fan Survey.
Okay.
And there's a brief explanation of the survey, what kind of questions I ask, and then a link to the survey. And you can start the survey and then go back to it. You don't have to save it. It automatically saves for you. It's super, super convenient.
Thank you for that. And yes, I've done the survey. I will include a link in the show notes. But I'm
Thank you.
curious, is early, you've done this kind of early. Is there anything you're seeing? What is there trends you're getting to see? Is there something that surprised you so far of what you've seen? And I realize that's two different questions, but we'll start with are you seeing some early trends?
I think it's important to know the demographic, right? So a great
Yeah,
deal of the responses are coming from Letter to Youth. These are fans.
right.
These are absolutely fans. They've subscribed to the newsletter. They're interested in a lot of news on Springsteen as far as the tour, what's happening there. It is informed by fans that I would say are about right now, probably 40% are fans that are 30 years. They
Okay.
they've they've been on the journey with Bruce. And then there are millennials, Gen Z, which I love hearing from, who may not have seen him yet, but are deeply touched by the lyrics and are moved and will share such depth of how the lyrics are impacting their lives. It's just beautiful. And then as far as surprises, or, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. I would say, and not everyone, I would say it's the minority of people that go into the depth of how they've been impacted, telling some personal stories and about their own battle with depression or their self-esteem growing up. And it's all very beautiful because when you look at Springsteen on stage and the transparency of his soul in front of people that he trusts but doesn't really know, we are the same. We trust him in a way, but we don't really know him.
Mm.
And I think the book is like a connection of that. And I find what is most beautiful to me is the relationships that parents have with their adult children, where, and not all of them, but where the adult children are hardcore fans. I've
Yeah.
interviewed several men who have said, I am so grateful for Springsteen because my son and I have gone on road trips all over the country,
Yeah.
seeing him over the decades, and we've bonded by being in the car and our conversations. And so I have depth of those experiences to share in the book. And also some of the fan photos are in, we've seen, don't get me wrong, my gosh, Danny Clinch and
Yeah. Sure.
so, so many, Lynn Goldsmith. Wow,
Yeah.
the photography is incredible. But I will say, some of these fan shots of back in the day when you could take a 35 millimeter camera in,
Yeah.
I am blown away, and they haven't been seen before. So it's really exciting to me to be able to credit the fan photographer, how if they're selling their photograph where you can purchase it, that'll be in the references. So it really is going to be a community of sharing information and sharing a lot of thoughts. And then I think my favorite question on the survey is if you had a couple hours to spend with Bruce walking along the Jersey Shore,
Yeah.
what would you talk about?
And do you know a couple right offhand that should share some stories?
I'll give you the polar opposite, but I do want to leave just a little bit of mystery.
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to give absolutely.
What I find is so interesting is there's people that they want to talk about the emotional things, life,
Yeah.
facing their own mortality, being a father. And then there's others that are really scientific, which I just love that too. And they're like, I want to talk to him about the set list that he creates and
Yeah.
how in the world he has been able to not duplicate the exact set list all this time that he's been performing and the notebook that he has. And they really want to know a lot about the mechanics of the creation of the set list.
Yeah.
And then there's a handful of people that are like, why don't you talk to Ticketmaster and get the
Yeah.
price? And it's interesting. And yeah, I don't want to share too
No,
much
and
because
and you shouldn't. I've been asked in the past, like if I would ever be lucky enough to have him on as a guest, which color me thrilled. And I think that I would talk to him the same way I'm talking to you. What kind of
Mhm.
music did you listen to? What would your mother, how much of that influence was? You don't talk a lot about your dad liking music. Did he like anything at all? Was there a favorite song? And you talk about Elvis and the Beatles. Who are other people that influenced you? And I would talk to him as a fan, like a
Mhm.
music fan. When we had our son, I made a joke that once you're a parent, that is common ground for anyone else who's a parent. If I made the joke, right? If I was thrown in a room with Queen Elizabeth and back then we could talk about the kids, right?
Mhm.
Raising that and everything, even though it's totally different. So this is just your opinion, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you feel, or I'll share mine. I feel that there are certainly other artists like Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift fans, the Grateful Dead, that have a personal connection with their fans and them, a relationship. But I I don't know if there's anyone that I think Bruce is in that if I was going to put relationship with his fans, I would put him in the top 10. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I'm so biased. This
I
is,
know. I am too. That's why I just didn't know if you could, as someone with a doctorate, can distance academically and go, because I do
um,
know, like, I remember that when Clarence was sick, Lady Gaga had posted to her fans, please send positive vibes, send prayers, and they just exploded. And obviously, Taylor Swift has a fandom that is just absolutely joyous to see. But I just don't know, though. A guy who was on my phone, on my show, attended every Cyndi Lauper show on this latest tour. He went
wow,
all over the country and
sure.
attended every show. But it feels to me, as a biased Bruce fan, there is something very personal to his connection.
Yeah, and again, I haven't seen the individuals I'm going to mention. I haven't seen Adele. I saw
Yeah,
Adele, and oh my gosh, her connection with the audience, and it
yeah.
was at Excel Energy Center in St. Paul, maybe 18,000 fans indoor. It was as if we were in her living room.
Oh, wow.
And it was, excuse me, it was such a wonderful show.
Yeah,
Early on, when what was it, the album 21,
yeah,
the one Rolling in the Deep, and that album.
yeah,
I felt that kind of connection and her storytelling, and she was hilarious. Did it have the impact as much as Springsteen? No, because I haven't seen her that many times, but she has that. I would also say, for me, Sarah McLachlan. I saw her several times. Lilith
yeah.
Fair, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and she does have a depth of her storytelling that feels very personal. In fact, her latest tour, I've watched some clips on YouTube. I would love to see her again.
Yeah.
But no, there's no one like Bruce. I mean, for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and I'm open when other people will say, "Oh my God, I've seen the Grateful Dead, and it's just so amazing," or
Yeah.
Stones, or whomever it may be. But no, for me, it's there's only one. I joke, and Bruce is the only man I'll ever love.
I love that. Let's talk about, and it's like picking your children, but are there albums or songs that have a special place in your heart that you either go back to? You already talked about Trapped and how much that meant to you. Are there others you want to share?
There are, but first, I do want to just give you my brief thoughts on the latest tour. I
Oh,
did.
good. I'm so glad. Thank you. I
Yes,
meant to ask that.
absolutely.
Yes.
Oh no, here's the thing. When my mom died in, gosh, wow, my mom died May 20th, 2019. She was my best friend.
Okay.
Again, my parents were very young when they got married. Just, we knew it was coming, but it doesn't make it any
No,
easier.
it doesn't.
Yeah. So that happened. And then here comes COVID around the corner, right? And
Yeah.
it's, are you kidding me? For crying out loud. Now I'm going to be confined to the house. I got all this grief. I don't know what to do with it. And my second thought was, oh my God, I might not ever see Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band again. This is a tragedy. I'm devastated. Like,
Sure.
we have to get through this darn thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
part of my emotional being was I listened to Bruce Springsteen every single album in chronological order over a period of time during COVID. It was like every evening, every weekend, I went through and listened, really listened to every song. That was
Wow.
amazing. I highly recommend that experience.
That's
And
awesome.
and then I got really emotional about, oh my gosh, I want some souvenirs. I did have the tour book from my first show, but I didn't keep it as we do as young people, move around. And
Sure.
I, I'm gonna get this, and I'm gonna get this record. And next thing I know, I find this world of vinyl and collectibles. And yeah, I bought some real junk, and then I actually learned, wow, this is really high quality. Wow, this is really rare. And I just began collecting. Anyhow, when the 23 tour got announced, I mean, I absolutely got tickets the day they went on sale. I couldn't wait. I counted down the days.
Yeah.
And I absolutely got the usual goosebumps and teary-eyed when the band started taking the stage. I loved the show. It was different, and they're all different, right?
Sure.
But when the 24 tour started and I saw the Barcelona shows or no, the end of 20, was it the end of 23 or 24? No, the Barcelona shows. Oh my gosh, I love people from Spain. It
Yeah.
was incredible. And seeing those clips and a more relaxed Springsteen and band and
Yeah.
seeing, okay, he's actually doing sign requests. There's more looseness to it. And I was so happy that I went to the Pittsburgh show in August of 24.
Okay.
It was a 2-hour flight from where I live. Oh my God. He opened with Candy's Room and then Adam Raised a Cane. Those were both on my bucket list. Adam Raised a Cane. And then the whole time during COVID, I must have played If I Was a Priest. I am not joking, 120 times,
Yeah.
right? And so he did that song as well in Pittsburgh, hitting some of those wishes and hopes. And then I would just say for anyone who is still perplexed on why is the 23 tour scripted, watch Road Diary or
Yeah.
on Disney or watch clips from YouTube. He tells us why. And
Yeah.
so I think what's still on my wish list, though, and also what speaks to me and means so much to me, is even though I've heard Jungle Land with Clarence and Jake, I would love to hear it again. I don't want to be greedy. I don't want to be greedy. And my one of my personal favorites is has always been Racing in the Street.
Yeah.
I feel like it speaks to me and my growing up. Cars were important to people's lives.
Yeah.
Freedom, mobility, having very cool Chevys, anyhow, and also not knowing what you're going to do with your life and maybe ending up, on that front porch, being sorry for just being born. But what would be a treat to me and what's on my wish list? Bruce has said that one of his favorite Elvis songs, which Elvis did not write, is Follow That Dream.
Yeah.
And when Bruce has covered that song early on in his career, and
Yeah.
you can hear the sincerity in it. Now he has lived that dream, and we've got to be a
Yeah.
part of it. I would love to hear him do it again. Walk Like a Man, and Valentine's Day from Tunnel of Love. Oh, I just got goosebumps again. Um, one of my favorite standouts of human touch is Gloria's Eyes.
Yeah.
And I think his voice, that soulness of his voice and more of that baritone sound of his voice is something I really love. I would love to hear him sing Gloria's Eyes. And then, of course, Moonlight Motel from Western Stars.
Yeah.
Those would really be, I would love to hear all of those. But you know what? I really don't care. I don't care. I want him to sing whatever he wants to sing, and it's a gift just being able to hear him live.
I I had a lot of people on the podcast in 23, and I tried to be fair. I tried to get people who were really critical of felt like he was letting them down, that they weren't changing the set list. I argued that the only people I feel had a legitimate complaint was the people that prepaid for all the Nugs releases because they were offering a deal, right? If you prepaid for everything, I would have been going, look, I didn't know that the set list was not going to change, so therefore I didn't want all those. But I hit 20 when I saw him in Columbus this year.
Hmm.
And I, to me, I don't need it to be a different set list because every show is different and every show is field. I've seen Casablanca probably a dozen times, and every time I love it. It I don't need it to change. I'm glad you shared that. I also understand. I also thought it was a little unfair, the anger toward how expensive tickets were and the dynamic pricing. And I do think that while John has been a great manager, I do feel like him and Bruce should pay money for a better publicist right? Because it does seem like John Landau and Bruce uh, some were not did not handle that as well as they could have, right? Is what had to handle. I just loved and I agree with you. Road Diary kind of explains it's what he's wanting to do. And I just think it shows his creativity that he keeps changing things, right? He keeps going. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You shared losing your mom. When I remember 2020, as all of us did, and toward the rumors started coming, you started hearing rumors there might be a new Bruce album. There might be a new Bruce album. And I said multiple times, if we could get a new president and a new Bruce Springsteen album, maybe 2020 would not be the worst year ever in existence. What were your thoughts once you heard Letter to You?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the documentary that went with
Yeah.
it.
Hmm.
If I Was a Priest,
Yeah.
Janie Needs a Shooter. I love the camaraderie of the band. Holy cow. And Stevie said, my gosh, I thought we're going to make an album. I didn't realize we were going to make it in 5 days.
Yeah.
I loved, they were family. They were
Yeah.
family. I just absolutely adored every aspect of it. And obviously, mortality. Again, we have been on a journey with Bruce on Mary Climb In, town full of
Yeah.
losers. And we're pulling out of here to win and wanting to escape, coming full circle, going back to New Jersey, right? And
Yeah.
then holy cow, staring mortality right in the face and
Yeah.
being able to talk about it because that is not easy to do. That is, but yet it comes with such ease for him.
Hmm. One of the things that I got lucky with is I was in Houston and he says, I wrote this song blank years ago and I still don't know what it effing means, right? And I was with some friends and we looked at each other and said, no. And when he started doing If I Was the Priest, we lost it. My wife, who is a casual fan at best, though she does, Wrecking Ball's her favorite album, and she really liked Letter to You. She loved the documentary and the songs we heard, and we just were losing it. And so he played it in Houston, he played it in Austin, and so I said, if I'm the priest twice, I'm not going to complain about a set list. It just would I love the power of prayer? Absolutely. But and
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, what I love too, I think, again, but this has to do with seeing him so many times. Night Shift is not the Commodores. It
Yeah.
is very much, and I think this is spoken about in the Road Diary,
Yeah.
reaching to the individuals that have left us, whether it's Clarence or Danny or his mom. There is something transformational about the songs and then Backstreets, right? It also is just so different. And again, your point about if you saw or listened to multiple 23 shows, okay, same set list. But I do think there are nuances of both of those songs and I'll See You in My Dreams
Yeah.
that can really evoke emotion if you can feel and relate to it.
I
So,
agree, Rhonda. I agree. Before I'm going to get to the Mary question, but is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't? Is
oh gosh, this has just been wonderful.
well, glad. I'm
I
so
I
happy.
I can't think of what you should have asked. I think what just really stands out to me is Bruce has said, gosh, he didn't set out to do this to become a millionaire or,
Right.
reach that billionaire club status and then fall out because, well, if you get 500, however much he sold his catalog for.
Yeah.
And when you have money in the bank, the calculator goes to a billion pretty quick, right? So
Right.
I think a lot of hoopla was made out of that, which I think is absurd and ridiculous. There is one thing that I think is really notable about him and his generosity. Every concert I have been to, no matter where I've been to Florida, I've been all over the United States to see him. And it's always about, in fact, in Pittsburgh, it's always about the food bank, the local food bank.
Yes.
Uh, and I would just say, it's not that you forgot a question, but there is an old video. I'll send you the link. It's a newscast of the New Jersey 19 show, and the newscasters are standing outside, the reporters, and they're talking about this food bank. And to this day, Bruce still donates to this food bank. And through other fans, I learned that there's a shuttle bus that takes seniors to their either medical appointments or what have you. And it does say something about, I don't think it has Bruce Springsteen's name on it in
Hmm.
fine print, but it's something, it alludes to his donations, and he's so quiet about it. I don't think he's a closet philanthropist,
No.
but for somebody who has donated so much, helped to cultivate so much money
Yeah.
and create a sense of community, that's what he said he wanted to do, which is create a sense of community. I think he's done it. Check that box.
Absolutely, Rhonda. I did remember I read an article. It was a blog. They announced what Bruce donated, like backstage passes, a signed guitar, I forgot what else, to the USA Olympics as because of Jessica. And someone made the joke that is his version of buying a case of Girl Scout cookies. Right? Because your daughter's selling Girl Scout cookies. Yeah, I'm gonna buy a case because it's my daughter. And I always thought that was pretty funny that he did that. Yeah, I think he's he's not perfect. None of us are, but I think he tries. And I think that one of the things that I find great joy in is it appears that he is trying to continue to be creative,
Mhm.
right? Like he is pushing himself creatively and he still finds joy in doing something different. When the covers album came out for Souls, I said, sign me up. Bruce Springsteen sings country music. I would love for him to do an album of Hank Williams, Merle Haggard. These one disappointment I had, and it minor, is I was in Austin and waiting for the show to come out, and darn it, I'm drawing a blank. Oh, when you're old, you forget things.
Oh, please, you're not old. You're not
Hmm.
old at
Yeah.
all.
George Strait walks out.
Okay. Oh, I did see that clip.
Yeah, and where he introduces the band, right? And so I'm thinking, George has got to come back. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? And they didn't do anything, right? Because of the set list. And to true, maybe George didn't want to perform, right? Maybe but I was like, oh, that was great. All right. You've summed it up so perfectly, Rhonda, and I want everyone to go and do the survey. But before I get you out of here, I'm going to ask you the Mary question. So, if you are friend or family of Rhonda and you're checking out this podcast, you should be very proud. She made you guys, she looked awesome. But I end every podcast with what I call the Mary question. And what that is Jay Armstrong, who is now retired, but when he was an honors English teacher in the Philadelphia, his students the lyrics to Thunder Road, and they would talk about it as if it was a poem, discussing the imagery and themes that Bruce explores. And then he would ask his class, does Mary get in the car? So, Rhonda, that is your question. Do you think Mary gets in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Okay, and this is where I struggle with my academic background and my emotions and also the logic.
You can
Don't,
give a couple of versions if you want.
no, just don't. Hey, fans, don't shoot the messenger. Here's what
Right.
I think. This is just what I think.
Yeah.
So I think it was fictional.
Okay.
For this is why. When I listen to Bruce talk about his career now and his reflection, he wanted to play live. He wanted an audience.
Yeah.
He traveled to play music and fulfill his dream. I don't think at the time he was ready to leave with just Mary.
Okay.
Not at that time, anyhow. Not at that time. And I think it's hilarious. He learned to drive while on the road going to gigs.
Yeah.
So he wasn't really ready to even drive her. Who knows? Who knows? I do think it's real. It's a wonderful story. Did he live it at that time when he wrote it? I don't think so. Maybe it was something that would happen in the future.
Mm.
I don't know. But hey, I don't know. I don't know. And I wouldn't spend my time asking him that question if I were to spend time with him because I know somebody else would.
Someone has asked me, and obviously, Thunder Road is a story. And
Mhm.
so in the story, about half the people say yes, she gets in the car, about the other half say no. Speaking of Moonlight Motel, one of my favorite answers is she absolutely gets in the car and they drive to West, and Moonlight Motel is him mourning her, mourning Mary's death, which I love that answer. Somebody else mentioned that Racing in the Street, the porch that she sits on her daddy's porch was the porch she danced around. So yeah. And I would ask him because I ask everyone, but someone said, then you'd know the answer. And I go, no, just because Bruce says yes or no doesn't mean that's the answer because it's all individual. All right, Rhonda, if someone wants to reach you, how can they? And once again, how do we get to the survey?
Sure. SpringsteenFan.com will take you to the online collectible store that I have. Please don't go there with the intent to buy anything. That's not my objective. If you
Right.
go to SpringsteenFan.com, you'll click on the survey link. It's at the top of the navigation, whether you use mobile or desktop, laptop. And if you'd like to reach me, you can click on contact us or email fan@springsteenfan.com.
Okay, good. This has been so much fun. Thank you for getting early on a Sunday and talking to me. This is a blast. I hope you get tons of people telling their story, and I can't wait to read the book.
Oh, thank you
So
so much, Bessie, and thanks for what you do. I really enjoy listening to and watching the videos of your podcast, and it is interesting to me what people would like to listen to. And the fact that you do this and work too talks a lot about your commitment and dedication as a fan, and I think it's lovely. So thank you for the work.
that is so lovely to say. Yeah, this is just something I love. I believe every Springsteen fan has a story to tell, and it's my goal to get as many of them on the record as possible. I love talking to people that say, I've only been a fan a year. Great, join me. I don't have an interesting story to tell. Yes, you do, because you have your story, and there's no
Right.
one story that's like yours. And so that's wonderful. All right, Rhonda, this is lovely. Everyone, go to the website, follow the link, give them the survey. As she said, she's not trying to sell anything, but there are some pretty cool things there. I'm just going to say if you have some gift cards you got over from Christmas and it's burning a hole in your pocket, buying Bruce collectibles is always fun. Everyone, I hope you're having a wonderful new 2025. Let's hope that we get some more US tour dates from Bruce. But for now, everyone, be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Happy New Year.
And we're done. Great job.